Hello, welcome to Quilt Canada and to the Grace Company Canada's booth. This is really exciting to get back to being with you people again, being with quilters. My name is Jared. I do a little bit of everything at the Grace Company Canada. Occasionally you'll see me at quilt shows and dealer stores. I run some classes at those dealer stores occasionally. And most often you'll see me or you'll interact with me doing tech support. So if you've had a problem with your quilting machine or you've had some questions that no one else was able to answer, that's where you usually end up talking to me. I don't know. To me, this is so exciting to be back doing quilt shows again. Normally it's a lot of fun to be able to meet with quilters and see the different projects they're working on and the tools they're using to accomplish those projects. I just love it. This morning we'll be joined by the wonderful Carla Jerome, who'll be teaching us a little bit about free motion quilting. I'm not sure if you guys know much about Carla, but she is just divine, just a lot of fun. Here's a little blurb I found out about her. Carla Jerome of the Grace Company Canada took her first quilting class in 1986 at the store she was working at and instantly fell in love with quilting. She enjoyed learning about fabric and how to make templates. Carla worked with her mother, Grace, of the Grace Company, who always encouraged her to develop her skills as a quilter. Carla taught her first class hand quilting, named Teeny Tiny Stitches, in 1992. Each quilt Carla makes tells the story of the Grace Company. Through the use of new techniques and technologies, Carla loves to challenge herself and will pick a pattern or design that is out of her comfort zone to improve her quilting. I want to share my love of quilting with everyone. The most enjoyable part of quilt shows is when quilters share their ideas and artistry. It is a fantastic way to help each other grow and develop new techniques and ideas, as well as learn the individual stories of the quilters behind the quilts. It's so very exciting to be part of such a great industry and one that I'm passionate about. Wow. I love Carla. I met her, 6 years ago, and she is just the nicest lady. And I'm sure we will all enjoy learning from her. So without further ado, let me transition over to Carla teaching us the free motion fundamentals. Here she is.
Hello everybody and welcome. Today I get to talk to you about something that I really enjoyed as a quilter, and that's free motion quilting. And I've done a lot of research and I've been able to learn free motion quilting really on my own. Yes, there's some great quilters out there and they have a lot of good advice, but a lot of new beginners don't know where to start or why it's important to do certain steps as you're free motion quilting. And they just bypass it because it becomes a little difficult and they think that they're not artistic enough to do their own thing with the free motion quilting and drawing out designs. And so I just want to help you become more confident so that you are taking tips and techniques that I'm teaching to be able to go and give you the confidence and do your free motion quilting. So, doing my research, I had to think back of where I started, and I started quite a while ago. And so I have gotten better with my free motion quilting, and a lot of it comes from experience, and the way that you're able to sew across your quilt. Now, think back of when you first started sewing or first started writing or first started walking. You take baby steps, okay? and that's what we're going to talk about today, is the baby steps leading up to it. Now, when you start quilting, a lot of quilters think they want to be this fabulous quilter right out of the bat, and you're not, okay? Because the machine's a little smooth and it's easy to make little wobbles in your designs. And even today, all the professional quilters are not perfect quilters. So allow yourself the learning curve. Just say, you know what? I've got to learn this, and know that it can be learned. I mean, we all have to start somewhere in the quilting process. And so the first place I want you to start is practicing. And I want you to think about getting a doodle notebook. This notebook will help you come as a resource. It helps you practice drawing your designs, and that practicing as you're doodling is so important because it helps your memory retention as you come to the quilting frame. It allows you to remember which directions you need to move or how you want to draw the design. This doodling part of quilting is extremely important, and something that if you're not doing, it's so much fun. So if you're sitting in front of the TV or you're just sitting there talking on the phone, put your phone on speaker and start doodling and just practice your designs while you're talking, because then you're doing two things at once, and that even helps you even more because it helps you remember the direction that you're supposed to draw, but you're doing another exercise talking at the same time, so you're trying to focus on two different items, so it helps you to multitask. So those are great tips and tools. So if you have any free time, just sit down and doodle. No matter where you are, even if you're in the car just riding along, listening to the radio. If you're the passenger, don't do it while you're driving, okay? But if you're the passenger, just doodle away. And a lot of our phones have pens that we can doodle as well. So start a doodle notebook. And start with easy designs. When we first started our penmanship and writing, we started out with easy, simple little things. And with a lined notebook, it helps you work on your proportions as well. So I have my little doodle notebook that has the lined papers in it. And as I started doodling, some of the first easy designs are just little waves and loops. And just start using the alphabet, the cursive alphabet, not regular letters, but the cursive alphabet is a great resource for designs in quilting. So this is a small case L and a little E. And I've just did two lines to show how I did the L, but I did the single distance between the two lines as the E, and I just, mastered that. So, and then another one is like a U. So it's a curve and an up, down, up, down, up, down. And like I said, the proportions on the lines really help you make it nice and even all the way across. So just to show you, and then as you're quilting, you can just do L's all the way across. Then you can add L and then an E, and you can do the U's. You can make them a little smaller, but then you can start adding elements to it. So you can do a U with a circle underneath, and then you curve over the top, do a circle again, and then you move around and you do your circle again. Then you'll add a circle at the bottom of your U, and then at the top of the U coming across the top, so that valley and hills. Let's call them valley and hills. So you'll add a circle on the valley, and then another circle on the hill. And so you'll just move across. And then, as you're working on your designs, what you'll do now is that we're just making the distance a little longer using my lines. So instead of just 1, I'm using 4. So I'm doing my little circle on the hill, and this will help you work with your meandering and learn how to stipple. So if you'll practice, and then practice changing the direction of how you quilt, that also helps your memory, and also change the position of the design on your quilt. So this is just upside down E's, and then I started doing upside down L's as well. So you can see that this would make a fun little element in a border or a sash sheet, doing the different directions. Now this is a capital L. It's just a nice loop coming back, and again, these lines help me keep my proportion of my design so that I have it proportionally correct. Now, it doesn't help with the distance, so if you're concerned about the distance in between, you could just measure going across like this and add little lines so that you can keep the distance correct and the circles correct. So there's lots of ways that you can practice your doodling. Now, this is a fun design as well. So this is just kind of a zigzag. It's so simple, but you wouldn't realize it. This is my start point right here, and I moved up at a diagonal to this line here, okay, on my sheet of paper. So I went diagonal, then I went towards, if I was in front of it, it would have been the left, okay? So it's the right on me. So move to the left as you're sitting in front of it. And then you'll come back down to the diagonal and you'll move to the left again, and then you'll go back up, and you'll just keep doing that all the way across. So you have this little fun design. That's a fun one to practice. And so challenge you to practice something new and a little different. Then, as you're doodling, another fun thing in your doodle notebook to also help you learn how to fill in different shapes. So I'm just using simple squares for my shape, but you could use a hexagon or a triangle and try different things. So just draw them in your notebook and practice with little filler designs. So this isn't even complicated at all. It's just a design that I did in the valley and the hills. It's a little longer, but I just went across, making them vertical, and then I came across and made them horizontal. So it just changes direction. And on a quilt, it's very pleasing to the eye to have the different directions because it draws your eyes different areas. So practice on that. Then notice that now I started in the corner with my valley and hills, and I went this direction. So now I probably leave these two blanks. So try different ways of quilting. You don't have to fill in every area, and sometimes that can become a little messy. And sometimes you need that little space that has nothing in it whatsoever, and that makes it more pleasing as you're looking at it. So sometimes when a quilt has too much on it, it's hard to notice and recognize all that beautiful quilting, and sometimes less is more. So just decide how you like to quilt and what you like. Doesn't matter what anybody else likes. If you like it, that's great. Okay, now the stippling. A lot of quilters think, wow, let me start with the stipple. Stippling is actually a little harder than you would think. So practice in your notebook and practice in little squares so you can get the puzzle movements down. And stippling is just curves like a puzzle piece and going in different directions to kind of make it look a little meandering across your page. So start in one corner. Don't lift your pencil, keep going. And you'll notice that where you get hung up in a corner, just make it a little smaller and then come out. All the puzzle pieces are not exactly the same little size. They have small ones and large ones. So it doesn't matter if you get caught in a little corner. Notice that I kind of did a little erasing. That some of them are a little smaller because I was getting closer to my corner right here. So I kind of got caught there, so I had to just make this a little smaller. So practice that, and you can even practice it with points or spirals. Now, this is a fun little spiral design. It teaches you the basic beginnings of a spiral because spirals are not that easy to start with. So what you'll do is you'll come in and bring it to a point and then come back out. And I just kind of made it a little popcorn flower. And then you'll just come out and make it to a point. Just practice, practice, practice. And practice this all over your page. You know what? the more you do it, the better you'll become. So another simple design, I just wanted to show you about the spirals since we did the little popcorn, is this is a closed loop spiral. You can notice that as I come into it, I've got it really close to the same loop and I echoed around it. This is an open spiral because they're not touching. This is a closed and this is open because this one here, I closed it because each of the spirals are touching the next one, and this is open because they're not even touching each other. So it's going to cover more area more quickly as you're quilting. This is going to take a little bit more time because it's a little denser and closer together. So just look at the proportions and what you like and how you want to quilt. Okay, and a couple other little tools that I think are valuable for you. As I was working on processes and ideas, start again. I want to remind you, if you're not confident with free motion quilting, start simple. You can make a beautiful quilt with simple, easy designs. This quilt right here, I wanted to show you, doesn't have any complicated designs. It's a fun quilt. It has the houses and the stars. But I just wanted to show you the simple, easy designs that I used on it. So right here in the tree, I used the spiral. And notice that it's open spirals, but it kind of gives you that movement. So as we were looking in it, it looks more like tree. And also we added names in this because it made it fun. It's like when kids were smaller, I put their names in things so that they would look for it, and it keeps them engaged and excited about what we're quilting. So I added Charlie's name here, okay? Now, right here, for the background, I did some stippling. And then for my flag, notice that I did the waves back and forth. And how much fun that is. Simple design. And then I did my stars. We all know how to draw stars. You just add stars and little loops to keep them going. And that's really it. Those are really, and then on the house here, we just kind of did some U's. But nothing complicated, but look how much fun the quilt is. And just from those simple, easy designs, boy, you can create beautiful quilts. And that's how we started out. Was just something simple. This is a really old quilt that I did a long time ago. Now, the quilt on the back wall is a little more complicated because I had more experience as I was quilting. Notice that in the sashing, I just did the loops. Simple, easy, but it's eye-catching. And in the center, I did the little X with some, it's a little feather X, if you want to call it. It's not really a wreath. But the back of the quilt is just as fun as the front of the quilt. So, and then I kind of took the feather design with the little circle that I used in the sashing and the square and added it to the border to keep it going. And the border was so easy to do. It's just a little paisley, a couple of them, and then a spiral. Nothing complicated, but I took some time and practiced before I started quilting. And I also positioned things off. My border, I sectioned it off to get my proportions correct. And your doodle notebook, as you're doodling and coming up with new ideas and new designs, is a great resource for you to look back on for your quilting. So the next thing I want you to do is get a piece of clear template plastic, okay? And you have a rougher side and a smoother side and a dry erase. And then this allows you to draw your designs on it, to see what designs you like. So for this area, I'm just going to bring it over here, right here. I'm going to position this along my block here that I want to fill in. What I'm going to do is kind of section it off here. All right, that looks pretty good. So now I could start here in the corner, go like this. That kind of looks fun, a little different. And then you could just keep going. And then just keep going this way. So that's kind of fun and a little different. So you could do something like that. And then we could come down here to this bigger square, the smaller square right here, and then see what the loops look like. And you know what? Sometimes those mistakes are happy mistakes. See, I'm talking, doing what I'm telling you, and not. So just take this template plastic. It's a fun way to see what your design will look like and if it's what you want on your quilt. Then once you've done that, then I would suggest drawing it on a piece of paper. Okay? Like this. And then unthreading your needle. So I'm just going to position it off like this. And then I'll just draw my design. So my needle is not going to be threaded. And this just helps your muscle memory from your tracing. So without being threaded at all, you're going to kind of see if you have a feel for it. All right, so I'm going to start up here in this corner. And you're not sewing the paper to it or anything. You're just seeing what it looks like. And you can pin your paper to it, but just make sure that you have the movements down. It kind of looks cool on the paper too. There you go. That's kind of fun. So try that and pin it down and practice your tracing on the paper. And then if you wanted to, you could use pounce to pounce it on your quilt, or you even have the lines on the quilt right now. You can see where I've sewn. And so now I have a way of going back over. So there's a couple different ways that you can use this, but you know, try these techniques and use them and practice your free motion quilting before you jump in and actually start quilting. It will help you become more confident in your abilities, and it'll allow you to remember how your designs work and which position you need to move your sewing machine to get to the next design. Really important. So let's thread our machine, and I'm just going to come down here and do my little loops right now. And you can see that I've just drawn on my fabric the design. And using the pencil or the chalk or whatever method you like to use. Now, I have, there are some really good markers out there that are water soluble that you can draw on your quilt, but I haven't found the best one yet. Once I do, I will let you know. But for right now, just use the chalk because I do know that it comes out. And don't use too dark of a chalk, just very lightly. Use a pencil as well. Very fine lines are really nice as well. So, and now I'm just going to start showing you that the simple little designs are the best way to start. I'm going all the way to the top. And just start moving across. And have fun while you're doing it. You know, learning can be a fun process. Because you could be excited about what you're learning and that it's new and different. I don't want you to be the type of quilter that feels like you have to stitch in the ditch all the time because that's what you're good at. I want you to try new things and new elements and add new ways of quilting. Try new things. Be different. Okay, one other thing I wanted to show you. It's kind of pleasing to the eye if you're changing from a large to a small, to start with a large and end with a large. And it just makes it more pleasing to the eye, because then you think, oh, they ran out of room or something like that. So just make sure that you start with a large and end with a large, or if you're starting with a small, end with a small. It works a little nicer and it's more pleasing to the eye. Just a couple more things as you're quilting. Just a few thoughts that I want to bring to your attention is, as you're quilting, even free motion quilting, getting your quilt on nice and straight really does help it turn out more even and beautiful. If you put your quilt on uneven, it's going to look a little uneven and a little sloppy. So as you're putting your quilt, use your cloth leaders, or make sure that your edges are nice and straight. It just makes a lot of difference as you're quilting. And it keeps it from moving up your quilt at an angle or down. So make sure that you have a straight line going across your quilt and that your edges of your top and your bottom are nice and straight. Now, as you roll it, you're going to get some shifting, so that's why you're going to make your backing wider and longer. So make sure that you have enough. Now, on the sides, you don't need quite as much, but from the top to the bottom, you're going to need a little bit more. So make sure that it's wider from side to side and longer top to bottom than your top. And if it's a piece top, make sure that you're positioning your top where you want that strip or wherever you want that block to be. So if you want to spray baste as you're positioning it, you can. I do not like to baste. It's something that I just don't want to do. So I'm very aware, because my backings are always piece, of where I want that center, if I want it centered or if I want it off to the side. So just make sure that you're aware of where you want your top to be in regards to the back piece of your block, of your backing. Then the other thing is as you're quilting, just recognize that there are different size throats of machine. I'm using a 19-inch machine, so I have quite a distance I can travel, and I could make a larger design, one big, huge design. So the throat size of your machine is extremely important. If you have a smaller throat, then the size of your design is going to have to be smaller and in proportion that you can quilt it without hitting the back of the machine. So as you're quilting along, if you have a smaller throat, then you're going to hit the back of your machine and it can mess up your design. So make sure that you know how far you can quilt without hitting the back of your machine. So I like to, with my chalk, just mark. So I'm not going to mark it down here past the foot. You're going to want to mark it up here before it hits. So I know that that's how far I can travel without hitting the back of my machine. And then if I hit the back of my machine, it's going to mess up my design and cause me to have a straight line because I'm hitting the back of it. So make sure that you do your markings as you're quilting along. And that you're tacking down the edges of your quilt. That's really important as well. If you happen to sew off the edge of your quilt as you're coming back onto it, I'm just going to show you right down here. It can fold over the edge of it, but also it can get caught between the needle and the foot, and you can sew your quilt block down in your foot, and then you're just going to have to cut it out, or be really careful as you're unpicking it right there. So notice that this is extremely important, and a lot of one that I learned the hard way. So learn from me, okay? I do not like to unpick, but yet I made a big mess by not tacking down the edges of my quilt. And so ever since then, I've been very religious about tacking down the edges, even with free motion quilting. And even if you're quilting inside this area, it's a good rule of thumb to always tack down your quilt edges, because you never know if you're accidentally going to sew off the edge. So those are just a few rules and techniques, and I look forward to you joining me for part 2 of this, where I'm going to show you some accessories for free motion fundamentals that you can use to help ease you into that process. So join me next time.
Wow. Oh, wow. That is just amazing. I wish I'd watched this video years ago. Thank you so much for joining us, for watching the presentation with Carla. Thank you so much, Carla, for putting on such a wonderful presentation. I love the... I made some notes. I love that doodling is part of quilting. My mother and my teachers in school would be so proud. Now doodling has a purpose. And then I loved the tip about using the plastic template. I've got to go find me a plastic template now. I'm so excited. That was just such a neat trick. If you guys have any questions about the presentation or other things going on, go ahead and leave them down below, and I will make sure I address them. Oh, wow. I'm so glad that there's a presentation like this. Like I said before, I would have loved to have seen this video a few years ago. I started quilting when I got this job just 5 or 6 years ago, and I looked around and I scoured the internet trying to find easy quilting patterns to get started, and how do I get started on the actual quilting part. And it was hard to find things, for me at least. I found it difficult to find things, and to have it all kind of packaged together on this is how to get started, this is how to make it easy, these are the tips to avoid. Carla's a little late with the tacking down the edges tip. I already learned that one the hard way. But hopefully you've enjoyed the presentation. Hopefully you have learned some great new tips on how to make your free motion fundamentals better and easier to get started. I hope that you'll join us tomorrow for free motion fundamentals part 2. And we've got more presentations throughout the day. We have our telephone line. Let me see if I can get that up. There we go. Our telephone line, 1-844-764-7223. We have people manning the phones all day. We're happy to answer your questions. Anything you have there. I don't see any comments coming in, so I'll see you guys at the next one. Have a great day.